board gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's episode we're going to be reviewing a game which has started shipping to Kickstarter backers in the last kind of 2 or 3 weeks. I think I received mine about 10 days ago, and it's a reissue of a very much loved deck building game. The deck building game was released in 2015 and it's all about kind of dinosaurs battling each other, and the game was Apex Theropod, and of course the reissue is Apex Collected Edition, which is, as I mentioned, a dino battling deck building game which a lot of the community seems to absolutely love. So I backed this at some point last year, almost completely forgotten that I backed it, and then as of a couple of weeks ago I got notification that it was being shipped. And it was met by me with a very mild sense of anticipation. I say mild because dinosaurs aren't really my thing. So if dinosaurs aren't really my thing, then what am I doing backing a dinosaur battling deck building game? Well, you know what? I knew that the game had got a lot of love in the board gaming community. A lot of people absolutely thought it was almost the quintessential deck builder. So when it came to Kickstarter last year, I thought I would actually kind of back it. And one of the reasons for that is that I also don't have many deck builders in my board game collection because card-based games aren't really my thing as well. Okay, so we're going 2 for 2 here then. I've got a dinosaur game, and I don't really do dinosaurs, and I've got a totally card-based deck building game, and I don't really enjoy purely card-based games. Surely, you know, this is going to have a negative effect on my experience with Apex Collected Edition. Well, let's have a look. So before we talk about the game, let's just talk about the contents and what you get in the box of Apex Collected Edition. Look, without being too in-depth, it's a box of potentially kind of over 1,000 cards, and you can see some spaces there. I've got them all nicely divided. Now, the card quality is pretty damn good, to tell you the truth, as you would expect. You have a reasonably thick kind of card quality on there. And for those of you that sleeve it, there's plenty of space in the box for the sleeving of cards. The artwork is pretty evocative that you get on there as well. So here we have a, what is this? It's a Quetzalcoatlus, and as you can see, the artwork on there of this particular winged dinosaur is pretty good, and the artwork is thematic. It resonates throughout the game. What you also get as well are a couple of boards. Now, in reality, you could probably play the game without having any boards on whatsoever. It is 100% card-based. There are no dice, no tokens, no nothing. It's purely various decks. And you have a nice kind of hunting grounds board, which is this nice thick cardboard, and you also get 4 of these nesting grounds as well, which is your player mat, and that gives you the various locations on there. What I did, again, I couldn't remember that I'd done this, is I actually went for the neoprene mat. So I've got the 2 neoprene nesting grounds, and I've also got 1 major neoprene hunting grounds. And I must admit, I haven't used the cardboard because, of course, neoprene rocks, basically. And I'm so glad I actually went for those, because the issue with card-based games and deck building games is, of course, you're picking the cards up a lot, and if you play on cardboard or a hard surface, that can lead to nicks in the end as you're trying to get underneath them. With the neoprene, it's a lot easier to pick them up. So as well as the cards and the dividers and the space that you get in there with the great kind of card quality and the artwork, you also get a rule book in here as well, and the rule book is kind of broken down into 2 sections. You have obviously an overview of what you get in the game and what each deck does, and then you have the solo rules and also the multiplayer rules. Now, I do believe that when Apex Theropod first came out, it was advertised as a 1 to 6 player game. In the reissue, they kind of redefined the rules for the multiplayer, not so much the solo player, I don't think, but for the multiplayer, and it's now advertised as a 1 to 4 player game. I would say absolutely this is possibly better as a solo game than it is as a multiplayer game, and that seems to be the general consensus on the forum. So that's kind of the contents. In reality, you know, you paid 100, whatever it was for, I can't remember the exact price, might have been like $100, something like that, for 1,000 cards and a couple of neoprene mats. Sounds like a lot of money. So was my investment worth it? And I'm not going to answer that question just yet. You see, cost is all relative, like anything, we certainly with Kickstarters and with board games, we sometimes pay what we think the game is worth to us. And I've seen this on many Kickstarters where people say, "Look, it looks like a great game, but I'm not willing to pay that price." It was a slightly expensive price, but in the collected edition, what you got is the base game and all of the expansions that were available for Apex Theropod. As well as a couple of additional ones as well. There is the Promethean Wars, which is a excuse me, almost like a Robo Dinosaur deck that you can use, and there's also the Stomping Dead, which is like this zombie kind of version of it as well, a zombie dinosaur version of it as well. So you do get a couple of editions on there. So yeah, I knew it was high price for a purely card-based game when I backed it on Kickstarter, but it's all down to the playability. And I had so much faith in everybody's kind of reviews and previews about the original Apex Theropod that I thought this would be worth it for me. So let's have a look at how the game plays. Just before we get to how the game plays and how you set it up, the aim of the game is to play as one of the, I think it's 13 species that come with the game. That's not including the Promethean Wars kind of dino species as well. You're going to play as one of those, battling one of the 15 bosses plus their minions, as well as various other creatures in there. And you're going to try to establish dominance, basically, hence the reason Apex. You want your species to get right to the top, be the very best species in this particular area. You're going to start out with a relatively weak hand of cards, but progressively throughout the game, as you would with most deck builders, you're going to start building that deck of cards in your deck, in your draw deck, to create more powerful monsters, more powerful dinosaurs, not necessarily monsters, and have more of an ability to actually defeat the boss when they come out and get drawn from the deck. So what I've done is I've more or less set the game up. I just want to show you exactly the various decks and show you what happens with the species deck and also with the boss deck as well. So let's start off with the decks up at the top on the hunting grounds boards, and I'll go through those and show you what each one of those does. So the first thing to show you is right at the top up here is the environments deck. So the environments deck is the timer for the game, if you like. And what this is going to do is it's going to give a condition each and every turn, basically, sorry, each and every round that will affect how you play the game. Depending on what difficulty you want, you're going to start out with some of these emergence cards. And what these do is these prevent ambushes from happening and allow you to cycle through your kind of your Apex deck and put them into the hatchery a little bit and potentially get new monsters. And it says to start, depending on the difficulty that you want, with 0 to 3 of those. So obviously when you're first playing the game, you're probably going to want to put 3 in those, and that gives you a kind of a fighting chance then. And then you have 7 more different varying environment cards, and there are a number of environment cards in the game itself. I think, let me just check on the here we go. There are something like 22 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 27 various environment cards that you can choose from, and then you will choose 7 of those. So let's just put those to one side. And every time that you every round, you're going to turn over an environment card and it will have an effect. So for example, Tropical Storm, if I was to turn this one over, it said you may gain an alert card, adding it to your hand to draw 2 additional cards into your deck. So that's really good. Basically, that allows you to potentially get more cards into your deck. But what happens at the end of the environment phase is always the final 2 cards. We've got our Asteroid Impact, which is this one. So once you get really far through the deck, and I say it's the timer, and this says that all cards in the game trail are eliminated. Footprint 3 is replaced with a disaster area. Eliminate your entire hand except for 1 card and draw 4 cards. And then the very final card is it's forcing you into a boss battle, basically. All cards in the game trail and hunt decks are eliminated except boss cards. Discard your entire hand and draw 4 cards, and then you would draw the boss card, basically, and fight the boss. So it gives you a final chance to fight the boss, because the aim of the game is to defeat the boss that you've drawn. So they will always be your final 2 cards. You will start off with some emergence cards if you want, and then 7 random environment cards, which kind of dictate what's going to happen on that particular flow of the game for you. So next up that we'll talk about is the Evolve deck down here. I'm just going to skip the Game Trail and the Hunt deck for this time being. And the Evolve deck, you start out with this entire stack on there, and you can see that I'm going to put cards out into here, and they will cycle each round. You can buy these cards, and these give you certain upgrade abilities into your hand. So maybe it is, you paid the cost for this one, and you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your draw pile. And there are 3 cards. From the reveal cards, you may add all Apex cards to your hand and discard the rest. Or maybe, here, you may gain one of your hatchlings from the elimination pile and add it to your hand. All hatchlings played this round have 2 attack. So there are kind of numerous Evolve cards here, and these are going to create a pile just there. Let's talk about these cards over here. We have these cards which are going to be brought out by various aspects of the game, basically. So the disaster area is effectively going to block off one of your game trail areas, and the defensive stance is a card that's activated by some creatures, and it's just as a reminder that they may have an additional power, and that could be something to do with stopping them being hunted by certain cards, etc. Here we have some alert cards, and I'll explain how alert cards happen as we go through the game, and they kind of gum up your hand a little bit, but also they activate certain actions on certain cards as well. Not a great thing to have. And finally, the Affliction deck. So this operates in one of 2 ways. First of all, as the game progresses, you will gain afflictions, and these could be anything from like a flesh wound through to a severe trauma, or maybe some broken bones, or maybe you've got a virus. If we look at this, you would gain an affliction card and place it in your discard pile, and then place this card on top of your draw pile. So once you get the virus in your hand, every round you're going to redraw it back into your hand, gain another affliction card. And what these do, as I say, they effectively gum up your hand and stop you from pulling out some combos. There are ways to clear viruses, don't worry about that. Okay, final thing is the Hunt deck, which is here. And what you're going to do is you're going to put this Hunt deck together based on kind of a number of factors. Now, the rules are very, very good in telling you how this works. Let me just get to the right place in the rule book, and I'll show you. So here, to start off the Hunt deck, there are some generic decks that you're going to pull from. You're going to pull out of all the big game cards, 5 big game, 5 prey, 2 menace, 2 titan, and 1 predator. Now, there are many cards in those decks, so chances are each time it's absolutely unique. And then you're also going to choose a boss and its various minions. So for this one, out of the 15 bosses, I've chosen the Spinosaurus. And this Spinosaurus has 3 minions, and what happens is they are going to get shuffled into my Hunt deck. And my Hunt deck will populate the game trail, and this is the various monsters I can kill, or I can hunt, should I say, to start kind of beefing up my purchase ability to buy stronger cards from my hatchery. So there we go, that goes there, and then what will happen is that when the boss comes out, and it could come out early on in the game, I can choose to either fight or flight from the boss. If I flight, he goes back into the pack to the bottom of the pile, and I get to fight him as I cycle through that deck, and also at the end, as I say, based on the environment card that I have as well. So that's kind of the hunting grounds up there. Let's talk about my nesting grounds down here, and which kind of creature I've chosen to battle with. So here on the nesting grounds, this is your kind of play area. It's where your deck is going to be. The first thing you're going to do is create a draw pile, and there's a standard starting cards that you'll put in there, which are things like a carcass and also some eggs, which help you hatch more, and then some of your hatchlings. Each kind of deck or species that you choose to fight as they come with some hatchlings, and they're kind of the base level fighters. And a total of 12 cards create your draw pile. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take out 3 of your hatchling cards from the remainder of your species deck, which is here, and you're going to also then add 20 random cards from your species deck into this particular pile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You can see there are still some cards left. These are the species cards I'm not going to be playing with this game. Now, obviously, you shuffle those together to create what's going to be your Apex deck, and this is your hatch This is the cards that come out into your hatchery, if you like. So stronger cards, potential, some hatchling cards in there, and throughout the game they're going to be built into the brought out into the hatchery. You get the ability to purchase them, and of course they will then go into your draw pile and make your hand stronger. Now, as I said, I had 20 random cards in there, but in true deck building fashion, if you know the decks enough, then of course you can add whatever cards you want to in there. What you're going to do is you will draw 6 cards, and that will be your starting hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That will be your starting hand, and this will give me some idea of what I can do throughout my throughout this particular round. Any cards I play go into the playing field, and then they go into the discard pile at the end of the turn. Down here is the hatchery card, so any new cards that get turned over will go into the hatchery. Now we'll get the ability to purchase those cards based on that purchase cost, and that will give me a card back into my hand, which will be potentially stronger than the ones I've got there. Over here is the hoard, so this is any cards I've hunted from the main board, from the hunting ground and the game trail will go into here. When I spent those points, they will go into the den. And the final one here is the ambush point, and this allows me to play cards into my ambush point, which will save up this particular attack point for a future round. Obviously early on, not necessarily great because the hatchlings have only got 1 attack, but as you get more and more intense cards, or more higher cards should I say, so maybe I'd want to put that 2 into there, then that can go in there, and I can save that for the next time, for another round where there are more monsters in there. I might be able to use that, or maybe against the boss. However, if I've got into a position where I've got an alert card in my deck, in my hand, so whatever's happened, I pulled an alert card into there, that alert will trigger. It will trigger all the alert actions on the hunting grounds boards, which is generally on the game trail, but it will also make me cycle those cards into my discard pile. So it's not a massively long-term strategy, because you will start racking up alert cards, which will mean that you'll have to move cards from your ambush point over into your discard pile. Make sense? Kind of. Let's have a look at how the game plays. So, as we follow through these rules here, the first thing that you would do, because we've gone through that, we've revealed an environment card and we populated the game trail and evolve pools, is we would play any alert cards that are in our hand. When you start the game, you will not have any alert cards, but had I collected an alert card and it was in my hand and I drew it out, I would then have to play that first, and that would activate any of these alert mechanisms that are on here. So for example, on this one, it would recycle that card. That means that would take that card, recycle it, put it to the bottom of the hunt deck, and leave a gap in the game trail. We don't have any alert cards in the opening round, so that's okay. Then I will set my ambush. So as I mentioned earlier, ambush allows you to take one of your cards, put it in here and populate it for a later round. Maybe I want to draw on that in a later round, as long as I don't have an alert card, and I can use that a little bit later to fight the monsters in the game trail. And if we look up here, the game trail, this takes 6 hunt points, 1, 2 and 3 there as well. And what do I have? I have a total of 5 hunt points. So I know I can't hunt that. I can hunt any of those with what's left, or maybe hunt all of them, 2 of them with what's left. Because I have a total of 5 there. But generally off in the early game, you're not going to start kind of putting anything in your ambush point until you have built up some decent cards into your hand. So that is the set ambush. Then we're going to evolve. So you're going to play any evolve cards from your hand. So if I look here, I've got 1 evolve card, and this is this egg card here. So I play this and it says hatch a card and draw a card. Therefore, I'll hatch another card. That means I've now got 2 potential cards I can buy in my hatchery, and I also draw a card into my hand as well. And there we go. So I now have a hatchling. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hunt points now. So that is that done there. So I've no alert cards. I haven't set an ambush. I played the 1 evolve card in my hand, and now I can hunt cards. So why would I hunt cards? Well, when you hunt a card, obviously you've got to go through all this here, but it gives you, you're going to put this into my hoard if I successfully hunt it, and it gives me this amount of kind of evolution points that I can then buy other cards with. And as you can see down here, if I have a total of 7, I can buy this creeper, which gives me an attack value of 4, which allows me to hunt higher cards. So you can see the cycle there. So if I successfully hunted that and I use my 6 cards for that, I would put that into the hoard there. That gives me 4. would then have 2 further hunt points on my carcass cards that I've got here. So that would only give me 6, so it's pointless me actually hunting that at this stage. Although you can save it for future rounds, because I can't buy that card with it. What I can do is have a look to buy this card. So let's check the cards up here. We have, as I mentioned, the Stegosaurus. It's going to take me 6 total hit points to get this. And when I do hunt it, I gain an affliction card. If it's a flesh wound, then eliminate an apex card used to hunt this card and return the card back to its spot in the game trail. So there's a chance if I hunt that early on, I don't actually win that. Then let's have a look at this one. So this has got a hunt value of 3, and the ambush didn't work, and there's no alert card, so I could just get that. That gives me 1 evolution point, evolve point should I say. Here we go, and the Struthamimus, again 1 to hunt, and it gets recycled during alert, and that one is 2 to hunt, and it gives me another 1 there, but I can't use hatchlings to actually hunt that card. So let's look at my hunt strength. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to hunt here to try and get some evolution points. I've got 2 there, so I potentially need 3 points. So I could, oh man, this is difficult. This is difficult because if I go back and hunt this one, if it's a flesh wound, then eliminate an apex card and return this back to its spot in the game trial. Flesh wounds are the most frequent cards in that deck there, so I may not be able to actually buy anything this particular go. So let's have a look. So we got 2, 5, 6. What have I got? 6 there. Total of 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to play all of my hunt cards and take these 3 here and put them into my hoard, and that has given me 3 points to buy other cards with. Okay, so that's okay. That's my hunt phase done. I don't repopulate this area just yet. That happens at the end of the round. Okay, so you can see now I've got these in my hoard now. That gives me 1, 2, 3. On top of the cards I've got left in my hand, which have another 2 points on there, means I can buy this card in the next round. So here we go. Buy evolve cards from the hatchery or the evolve pool. So I can use these total blue points here, 1, 2, 3, plus the cards, evolve cards I've got in my hand here, which is another 2. So I've got a total of 5. I can buy a stronger monster, or I can buy some of these evolve cards to add them to my hand to then potentially get more effects as the game goes on. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy this aggressor here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play my 2 evolve cards, my prey carcass. They've got 1 evolve point each, so that's 2. And then if I play all these, and what you do when you play them from your hoard is you just, there's 3 points there, 1 on each, you see, you just put them into your den there. And then I'm going to buy this aggressor, which gives me 2 attack points here, plus 2 if this is the first card played from my hand, so that's good. And I put that into there, and that may well cycle up for the next round. Okay, so then it's the end of the round. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put all those cards into my discard pile. There we go. I'm going to cycle any cards left in my hatchery to the bottom of the hatchery deck. Okay, then I'm going to draw 6 new cards. So from my draw pile, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only got 4. I take the discard pile, I shuffle them, draw my next 2 cards, 5, 6, put that back as my draw pile. Let's have a look what we've got out of here now. So my hand is already a little bit stronger now. As you can see, I've got these cards available. I've got I've got 4 evolution points to spend there, and also I've got 4 attack cards, plus a potential +2 on there if I play that as my first card next round, so that's okay. Moving up to the top of the board, what we will do is we're going to move all those cards left in the game trail, and if there are any gaps here, in the evolution, in the evolve deck, the evolve pool, should I say, down to the very end. Then we recycle the last card in each one, should I say. So there we go, the very right one in each one. Move those down, ready for repopulation next time, and we're going to recycle the environment card. So there we go. So that's all the decks cleared, ready for my next round. I have my hand of 6. I beefed it up a little bit. We've used some monsters. I've got my draw pile back, and you will go into the next round. And for the next round, we draw, of course, an environment card. So let's skip those 2 emergence cards and just draw the next environment card here. This is a Meteor Strike. eliminate the card in footprint 4. I don't have any because you recycle always the very end card, and I recycled that and add a disaster area card to that footprint. So there we go. That means for this round I can only draw 3 monsters into the game trail. The remaining cards in the game trail are recycled. Discard your entire hand and draw 6 new cards, okay? So this wonderful hand I'd drawn myself, I have to discard all that and draw 6 new cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Still have, and I bet it's nowhere near as good. No, there we go. I've got 3 attack points, 2 hunt points. Sorry, 3 attack points, 2 evolve points, and also an egg, which allows me to draw and discard. Okay, so that's the evolve deck done. Then I'm going to populate the game trail. So we start right to left. And if any of these have an ambush effect on there, then this is activated because, of course, it's not an emergence card. And it says, ambush, reveal 6 or eliminate an apex card. So, revealing is more for the multiplayer games you're playing against other people. I don't have to reveal because, of course, this is just letting people know your hand. So you use the other function there, which is to eliminate an apex card. So this apex card is now going. That would have cost me 6 points and give me 2 attack. That goes up there. Next one in the game trail. It's the boss. So when the boss comes out, basically what I would do is I would literally eliminate all of the cards from there, and I would then choose either a fight or flight option. If it's flight, the boss goes to the bottom of the pack and the round ends. I keep this deck of cards I've got, and then I would effectively start the next round. Or if it was fight, then I would attempt to fight the boss. And what you would do over a series of rounds is you would pull out as many attack cards as you can, basically, to try and get the number of attack points here. So there we go. Eliminate, if I've got 0.7 points, eliminate a card in my hand and the battle ends. That means he would get recycled to the bottom. 8 to 15, reveal the top 3 cards of the Affliction deck. This card gains all revealed flesh wounds and others are added to your deck, and then the battle continues, so I battle again. And then 16 plus is this card gains 2 Affliction cards and the battle continues. So the aim of the game when you draw the boss is to try and defeat him. How does that happen? And that's kind of fortuitous that this boss card came out when it did, because I was wondering about how we discuss how you defeat the boss. You see, when you fight the boss early on in the game, the chances are is you're not going to do any real damage. You're probably going to pick up some Affliction cards and it's just not going to work out for you. So as early on as this was in the game, which was in effectively the second round, although I did skip those emergence cards. So had the emergence card been in play, this would have just been cycled to the bottom. See, the boss is quite difficult. You need to have a hand that you built up significant amount of attack points to give you a chance, because the boss is going to take a number of damage. So as we see here, it says on the boss card, if I'd got 8 to 15 attack points, I would reveal the top 3 cards of the Affliction deck. This card gains all revealed flesh wounds and the others are added to my discard pile. You see, the boss has a health on there. I don't know if you can see that. That is 7. So when you manage to do damage to the boss, it's going to come from these Affliction deck cards, which I showed you earlier. And there are various ones. There are, as I mentioned, there are flesh wounds, there are broken bones, there's severe trauma, and there are also viruses as well. And each of these has a health value on there. So you can see in the little red dot there, the virus has 3, the severe trauma has 2, and the flesh wound has 1. So as you are battling the boss, basically you will draw these Affliction cards out and add them to him. So he's got a health of 7. So I would draw if I'd done a damage 1 on this, and this would give him 3 health points off that 7, still leaving with 4. Then what I would do is I would then discard my cards, draw out another 6 cards, and try and defeat him again. However, so if I gain enough attack points, so 8, 15 or 16 plus on this, the battle will continue. However, if I have some in my hand that don't have enough attack points, then the battle ends. And what happens is when the battle ends, is the boss gets recycled back into the bottom of the deck and he loses all of those afflictions. So the next time you face him, you have to have a strong enough hand to keep that battle going. And that sounds easy, but it's not. You see, as the game progresses, you're going to get some of these Affliction cards put into your pile. And these Affliction cards, effectively, as well as having kind of a nasty effect for you, will gum up your hand, as I say. So you're drawing 6 cards out at a time. And if you've got too many Affliction cards, they will gum up your hand. They will stop you having attack cards. And also, if you pull out too many of the Evolve cards, excuse me, at any one time as well. You can start drawing evolve cards in your hand, which may have been helpful early game, but towards the end game, when you get to the boss, they're not really going to help you kind of battle that boss because you need these cards with attack points. So you get this real kind of dichotomy about, taking a chance and getting an affliction card because you take a chance to get something, but also is that going to hurt me in the later game as these affliction points start to rack up, and this becomes a real challenge in the game itself. So beating the boss is not necessarily a walk in the park. I think the more that you play the game, you understand the strategies that you need to employ in the game in terms of evolving the amount of dinosaurs or the better dinosaurs from your kind of Apex deck into your hand, so you get to use them. Kind of flushing out some of the cards from your deck so the eliminate action becomes really, really useful as you think, I'm getting later game now, so maybe I want to eliminate some of these evolve cards because I don't need them anymore. Managing that kind of balance between taking on too many kind of afflictions and what that does, and having a look at taking an alert card and how that can trigger certain bad effects, stacking up your ambush for the right cards, having an idea of where that boss card is in the kind of hunt deck after the first time it's come out gives you some indication of what you need to be planning for. You can work out how many cards you've got in there, and some get eliminated, but it gives you a rough indication. So there's a lot of kind of tactical and strategical kind of thought that goes into the game in terms of making sure that when the boss is going to come out, you have the right cards in your deck to battle him. So this is all sounding really good so far then, other than the kind of, the variety of the decks and the setup involved in the decks. You can see there's a really slick, not complex way of playing a kind of deck building game, which gives you the ability to build up your deck and feel like you're progressing throughout the game. Surely, it's an absolute winner. And in the main, it is. However, like a lot of deck builders that I've encountered, it kind of suffers from the early game problem. Certainly as you're first playing the game, you put your 3 emergence cards in there, and you have a very weak hand to start on, and no matter which species you are playing with, it just feels like those first 3 or 4 rounds are exactly the same in every game that you're playing. You're not starting to really feel the benefits of some of the stronger cards that are in your deck, so it starts to feel maybe the first 2 or 3 rounds as you get through those emergence cards, maybe an emergence card, and then the next couple of cards, there's nothing really there that feels like you're progressing. Then all of a sudden, things start to happen for you. Your deck gets a little bit stronger, and you do still start to feel that sense of progression. But that early game, you've got to be prepared going into a game like Apex Theropod and Apex Collected Edition for that early game to feel very, very similar as you're playing each and every game. Another thing to be aware of as well is, despite the startling amount of variety that's in some of these decks, and in terms of the species that you're going to choose to fight with and kind of be on the side of, is that they are graded in kind of easy, moderate, and hard to play and hard to beat the game. You don't necessarily feel that amount of variety in them. Whatever the individual powers are that are on there, ultimately at some point you're looking for these kind of attack points that you get from each dinosaur that you're pulling out of the Apex deck. And so therefore that variety is great. It means that the game never plays exactly the same way twice, but it can feel a little bit samey. I don't think that the asymmetry in each of these species decks necessarily comes through or shines through. So, I don't feel necessarily like I'm playing like a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a Velociraptor. I'm just playing a slightly different deck of cards, and that is potentially slightly problematic here. I would like to have seen a little bit more individual powers on there, something that actually absolutely stands out and makes me feel like the Tyrannosaurus Rex I'm playing as, or the Velociraptor I'm playing as, feels markedly different from any other species that I'm playing as. Where it does feel slightly different are the bosses that are available, the 15 different bosses that are available. That's where you start to kind of understand that, your strategy has to change depending on which boss you're actually tackling. So don't just pull a random boss and its minions out of the deck and think I'm going to play against that. Look at that boss before you start playing. Start studying. Have a look at the various points that you've got to hit when you're battling that boss to find out as to whether or not you have the strategy for that, or whether you have to adapt your strategy for that kind of boss. And that is the really kind of strong point about the game. Not necessarily the myriad species you can play as, which all start to intermingle into one, but the boss that you're battling on there and working out an individual strategy for each boss. That is the interesting part of the game. One other thing to note as well is that you've really got to be aware of when the boss comes out. It can look a little bit like some of the other cards that are on there, and therefore, you've really got to study each card that comes out into the game trail. Yes, it gets cycled and recycled every, kind of the game trail gets cycled and recycled every round, but do be aware that when you're pulling new cards out, that the boss card doesn't necessarily have many defining features on there which make it stand out. So you've really got to read each of those cards. Don't just assume that because it doesn't have an ambush on there that the card isn't relevant. So you have to read those cards as they come out. Look, there is some text in this game, and obviously it's a card-based game, and the text is a little bit small because it's on the bottom kind of quarter of the card. But I wear glasses and I can read it absolutely fine. There may be an issue for some people who have not less than perfect eyesight, just to struggle to read some of this text. But in reality, it's, for me personally, it's not the end of the world. Just be aware of when the boss comes out into your game trail. Okay, so final thoughts on Apex Collected, the new iteration of Apex Theropod. Right at the beginning I said that obviously dinos aren't for me, and I still stand by that. I don't really care that these are dinosaurs on here. It could have been absolutely anything. Thematically, it makes sense that they're dinosaurs. Of course it makes sense that they're dinosaurs, but for me, it makes no difference whatsoever. I was more kind of bothered about the kind of mechanics of the game and whether it would help me sway my mind on deck builders. So let's move to that next stage then as a deck builder. As I say, purely card-based games, not necessarily my bag, and certainly deck building games, I just find the whole faff of them just kind of takes away from my enjoyment of the game itself. I don't really like shuffling cards. I don't like sorting everything out before or after a game. So therefore, obviously I'm going into Apex Collected Edition with a bit of a disadvantage. However, I really, really, really enjoy this game, given kind of some of the stuff that I say around about the dinosaurs and the deck building itself. It doesn't necessarily bother me in here. The setup is a bit of a bind as you're sorting through various decks. You will get used to the flow of it, but you're constantly going to have to, certainly for God knows how many games, still refer to that rule book to find out what you're doing with each individual species and each boss, etc. And just making sure you've got the right cards. You can pre-sort some of the decks. So, I've got my starting deck sorted, and you can take out some of the cards that you don't need in the solo game out of each species card. So there are these kind of alpha cards that you don't need in the solo game, and you can take those out of each species deck, so it makes it easier, but still there is a faff involved in setting it up and kind of moving it down. The gameplay flows really, really, really nicely. That kind of structure that we saw of the various rounds, from kind of the environment card through to kind of drawing your cards and then go through the alert, set, ambush, hand evolve, hunt, purchase and play cards. Seems like a lot of steps in there, but it's not. It flows really, really, really well. Thematically, it kind of makes sense in most cases as well. When you go and hunt these dinosaurs, you put them into your horde, and then you use those horde to spend points on buying new cards from your hatchery. That kind of doesn't marry up, but I get why the mechanism is there. It gives you the ability to kind of strengthen your deck and get these new dinosaurs out of your hatchery into your hand, which make it kind of possible to hunt more monsters and eventually hunt your way towards the big boss as well, and hopefully successfully tackle the big boss. It's a dinosaur game, therefore evolution is always going to play a part in this. I don't know why I did rabbit ears on evolution. I fully believe in evolution. But yeah, evolution is always going to play a game. It would be nice to have a dinosaur game that potentially didn't have some form of evolution in there. But it does, and kind of, again, these give you more and more abilities as you go through. And as I say, the game flows and progresses nice and quickly, and kind of gets through all that. My major gripes, and they're not massive gripes, come down to the fact the species that you're playing as, they don't necessarily feel markedly different. I don't feel, as I mentioned earlier, like I'm playing as a Tyrannosaurus Rex or as a Velociraptor or as a Suchomimus. I just feel like I've got a slightly different deck of cards. The bosses feel slightly different, and that's good. But my individual deck doesn't necessarily, the variety doesn't come through. I'm glad it's there. It gives me the ability to kind of mess around and play with other decks, but I don't necessarily feel that that is the strongest point in there, which is a shame because it's obviously a selling point to have more species. It's just the individual powers don't necessarily come through that strongly. And other than that, I don't really have many gripes with the game. The game, a little bit of time in setup, plays through in about 45 minutes maximum, and then again a little bit of time to kind of tear down. And what I have done is I've found myself playing 2 or 3 games and just adjusting it while the game is out, because I'm really having a fun time with this. It gets you thinking, and it gets you kind of playing around with the variety that's in there, so you do have a slightly different experience. Has it changed my mind on dinosaurs or deck builders? And no, it hasn't really at all. I still don't give 2 shiny shits about dinosaurs and deck builders. I am enjoying this one, and I have some others in my collection as well. Mage Knight is a deck builder, I suppose. Arkham Horror LCG is more deck construction, similar with kind of Marvel Champions, and maybe that's the kind of more of what I don't like, is these kind of really card heavy games. And I've got Arkham LCG and Marvel Champions, I just don't play them that much. So yeah, hasn't really totally changed my mind about card-based games. I can't say I'm rushing out there to get another one, but in terms of a kind of Kickstarter investment for me, I'm really enjoying this. And I think, I've not played the multiplayer game, so when it comes to the solo game, is it worth it as a solo player? Look, this game has got a lot of pedigree and a lot of background. A lot of people really, really like the game. I'm coming as a relative outsider to this, in terms of the fact that I don't like dinosaurs. I'm not bothered about dinosaurs, and I'm not bothered about deck building games. But I'm so glad I got this. It's going to stay in my collection. It's not a game that I want to get rid of. I have a fun time playing it. It's easy to learn. It's relatively easy to play and provides a nice challenge. So for me, I really, really, really like this game. It's staying in my collection. It's not necessarily a top 10 game for me, but in terms of a deck builder game that I wouldn't have potentially tried before, I'm so glad I backed this on Kickstarter. So it is a not board gaming recommendation for a solo gamer. If you don't mind the setup, the teardown, and the fact that the asymmetry in the various species deck that you're playing with don't necessarily pull through into the game itself, you're going to set it up and have a pretty good time playing Apex Collected Edition by Outland Entertainment. And there we go. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey through Apex Collected Edition by Outland Entertainment, a really solid deck building game with dinosaurs. And if dinosaurs are your thing, so Dinosaur Island or Dinogenics or Tiny Epic Dinosaurs or whatever, you don't mind kind of all the names there. For me, it's just like, small hands, snarly teeth. Then it really could be a thing for you. If you like deck builders and deck builders are your bag, then I think you should absolutely seek out Apex Collected Edition, because from a non-deck building fan like myself, I think there's really a lot of positive things in this game. As a solo game, it plays absolutely fantastically well as well. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey through Apex Collected Edition by Outland Entertainment. This is Not Board Gaming. My name is Mark. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook or on Instagram. It's always Not Board Gaming, always BORED. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos as well. And one final thing. If you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.